mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
I didn't get any bad vibes from him, and I know that that's always the real signal. And I've been selling his book now for many years, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Fritz Springmeier. One of the only places you can actually get it is at Infowars.com. And when I first read this a decade ago or so, I'm going to be frank with you, I'd met Fritz when he was here in Austin on local TV, down at the station, and met him at another conference event once. And I believed he believed a lot of it, but even though I snuck into Bohemian Grove and things, and I first met him right after I snuck in there, I still had trouble believing it. Since then, so much. He was the first guy I heard talking about the royal family of England not really being German, but being from Transylvania. And then, you know, really being Arabic and all this stuff, or Sephardic. And then now that's on national news now. So just a lot of really wild stuff. And then over the years, so much of it, no matter how wild, has turned out to be true. Now, imagine Fritz. He had, I don't know how many books out, everywhere he went, selling tons of them. I know we were selling a lot. I happen to know the publisher. I knew they were selling them. And he would have no reason to bomb a porno store or whatever and then rob a bank. And I remember him saying, they're breaking in my house, they're trying to set me up. I remember seeing it in the news, they'd been raiding him and stuff. And then, boom, they grabbed him, put him in jail. Now, remember, the government has a 98% conviction rate with the feds. And he's on probation. He's been in jail for many years. He's lost a lot of weight. I just saw him on Skype a minute ago. He looks better than he did just a few weeks ago in the one video I've seen of a little presentation he did. He'll be back again, but we got to be careful how much he gets into today. But he's agreed what he wants to talk about is who he really is versus the lies of places like Wikipedia, and what happened to him, you know, what he can say about prison, and where he sees the world, 7-8 years after being incarcerated. But they can do this to anybody. They can plant drugs on yours truly, or put horrible things on my computer, or, God forbid, kill my family and say I did. And so Fritz Springmeier joins us via video Skype. Fritz, for people that don't know who you are, you know, a lot of people that have been into the conspiracy, into reality, they, of course, know who you are. Over the years, I've said, you know, they've said, where's Fritz Springmeier? Where's Fritz Springmeier? Where's Fritz Springmeier? Or why don't you get his wife on? We've tried, as you know, many times to get her on. But she obviously couldn't because she didn't want him to do stuff to you in jail. Now you've been out a while, but obviously, you know, even Free Ricky Ross, who started speaking out against government drug dealing, now they're trying to throw him back in jail. So I want you to be very careful here today. We appreciate you giving us the first big interview that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong. Good to have you here, Fritz. Tell us who you are, a brief snapshot of your life. You know, I know they said you weren't a West Point graduate. I actually went and looked it up in their rolls. There's your photo. There you are. But the point is, they've really attacked you. You hit some things that really scared them. Was it the Transylvanian bloodline? Is it the satanic rituals? I mean, why did they come? Well, get into who you are, what happened in prison, why they came after you, you think, and now what you see in the world.
Wow, that's a lot of questions. Okay, let's see what we can do with them. First, who am I? For myself, the image I have is as someone who's trying to model Christ. He's my role model, and that's all that really matters about my life, is that I be Christ-like. All the labels that the system tries to the system is labeling people right now, and their computer programs carry these labels. Like, for instance, 2/3 of the blacks in major cities are labeled as affiliates of gangs or gang members, you know. And so there's all kinds of labels that have been slapped on me, but the only label that I would want to be identified with is somebody who's trying to follow Christ. My life's been unusual. My father had the goal of helping save the world. He was an agricultural expert, and he went around the world living in many, many third world countries and trying to help them become self-sufficient. He made a career out of that. And he passed on the concept of trying to save the world to me. He said, you know, he said that if you're going to live life, when you leave it, leave the world a better place than what you found it. You know, sort of like that Boy Scout thing is when you go camping, leave the site better than what you found it. And I think I've honestly tried to do that and accomplish that to some degree. Why were they ticked off at me? I think it was a combination of a whole bunch of things that I did, but one of the things that they were really sensitive about was the mind control, the trauma-based mind control. You'll notice that I put out 3 books on it with about 40 pages of the actual codes that they use on the slaves. And once you have read those books and you're familiar with the codes, you can sit there and watch television and see them manipulating these total mind-controlled slaves left and right all around us. And people are constantly telling me that, you know, after they got in touch with my information, now they realize what's going on around them. Another thing, as far as
that's the book, How to Create a Totally Undetectable Mind Control Slave, which now they admit everything on TV is layers of programming depending on how programmed you are, and just someone watching TV since they were a small child, they are under a form of mind control, and actually scientifically, even BBC admits, in a lower brainwave function than we were just 50 years ago, the public in general is in a trance.
Yes, people sit in front of their televisions in a trance. In a sense, they're almost worshiping that altar, their television altar. So true, what you just said. And of course, your listeners have heard a lot of this. So, you know, I'm not telling them probably anything that they're not already familiar with.
You were a trailblazer. How did you discover all that? So that made them really angry at you.
Yes, I kind of bumped into the whole thing. I view myself as a historian, not as a conspiracy theorist. And I was doing a massive amount of research into the elite, you know, because we are now a government of the power elite, by the power elite, and for the power elite. And I was researching them to expose them, and I had the privilege of meeting 4 people that had been teamed up in the Illuminati to be a 4-person team that were trying to get out. And they pointed me in the right direction on a lot of things. I had to do most of the research myself, but because they pointed me in the right direction, it really helped me. And then that's how I got into the mind control.
By the way, just a segue, I ran into a famous person a few weeks ago and had dinner with them, and they point blank told me about Illuminati rituals and Hellfire Club and stuff, but then said, I'm not going to talk about that on your show, maybe sometime. So the point is, we know these things existed and do exist, but I mean, you're sitting there having dinner with a well-known famous person, and they're just point blank telling you all about it. It's just incredible. And to find out that most of the people that are part of Oxford in any of the elite clubs are actually taken to the caves, engage in rituals. I mean, it's just so widespread. You know, when I grew up in Dallas, people tried to recruit me into, and I'm talking about with wealthy people, into occultic stuff. This stuff is rampant.
Yes, it is. It's everywhere. And once once you're familiar with what it looks like and smells like, you see it everywhere. I've become almost numb to it. I walk around and I see it all around me, and it doesn't even, because I've just seen it for so many years and been able to recognize it for what it is.
Incredible. Okay, we're going to break in a moment, but this is just amazing. Continue in just 1 minute before we get back into what are some of the other things they got mad at you for and then clearly set you up. I want to talk about some of how you were set up. It's just incredible.
Well, you know, when I started working with these 4 people, I was trying to help them leave. And when you're in the Illuminati, you don't leave. It's like being an intelligence agent. When you enter, like, you know, if you entered the GRU, the KGB or whatever, they told you, you know, you don't leave our organization. Well, you don't leave the Illuminati. And that was what I was trying to help quite a few people do. And to the extent of actually giving away addresses and names and everything of people that were in the lives of the people I was trying to rescue. I exposed an entire Illuminati community in Bend, Oregon, and they all moved out. They sold their houses and moved out to different locations.
So you were like Van Helsing, stay there, Fritz. You were like Van Helsing exposing them, these psychic vampires, so they wanted to punish you and put you into the jail. Let's come back and talk about this on the other side with Fritz Springmeier, author of Bloodlines of the Illuminati. Stay with us. Okay, going back to Fritz Springmeier with us for the rest of the hour, maybe a little bit in the next, joining us via video Skype. Fritz, you were getting to the point of running these guys out of the community. And I remember you were doing it. The cops were raiding your house, quote, for marijuana, finding nothing, then saying on the news, we found extremist material. Well, of course, you were always in your talks showing different groups and how they controlled them. And, you know, you're a researcher. So, I mean, they could come to my house and find Mein Kampf and say he had a Hitler book. I mean, you know, they could go to a Jewish rabbi's house and find that and say he's a Nazi, I guess. So you were warning people. You said they're getting ready to set me up. Why on earth would you then go rob a bank? And then they used all these disreputable people to do this to you. Briefly, tell folks about how you were set up.
They bribed 3 real criminals. When I was initially indicted and brought before a federal judge, Judge Brown, she honestly said, and she told this straight to the DA, she said, I'm going to release this man until trial because there is absolutely no evidence against him, and there never was. And the judge kept saying, the judge that presided over my trial, he kept saying like it was some kind of a mantra. He said, he kept telling everybody in the courtroom, circumstantial evidence can be used to prove anything. Well, circumstantial evidence is like I went to the mall and I saw Santa Claus. I saw him on television. I saw a book about him. Therefore, Santa Claus exists, you know? So using bribe testimony... Or I say I went to Scotland and I saw the Loch Ness Monster with no proof. Exactly. And that's what they hung me with. Absolutely no evidence with bribe testimony that didn't even mean anything. And it's pretty startling. But today, juries are going to be looking at what the DA is doing, and they're going to, obviously my jury, if it was sincerely looking at the issues, must have said, well, why is the government going to all this trouble if he's not guilty? You know, because if they looked at at what was actually presented in the courtroom, there was nothing really presented. Now, like, and by the way, I looked into your case. When I called, when this was all starting. You weren't there, but your wife was. And it was like, oh, he's not worried. This is all just another attempted setup. Because you knew it was ridiculous, and you knew the first judge had laughed it out. But they didn't care, because a lot of these juries now, they fixate on groveling to the power structure, and they enjoy putting innocent people in jail. I'm telling you, they're sickos. Yeah. Well, and then I have to wonder if it was really a sincere jury. It certainly wasn't a jury of my peers. The type of people that were in, when we did voir dire, the type of people that were available to choose from were definitely people that were pro-establishment. And to give you just one example of many, one guy had been a lifetime submariner. Now, if you live on a submarine your entire life, you're going to be someone who follows commands, believes in the system, blah, blah, blah. you didn't see people that were coming out of the ghetto. You didn't see any, the entire group of people that were there were white. There was no minorities in the jury pool to pick from. Personally, I would have rather had some minorities that had a little distrust of the government. Yeah, your question about prisons was good, and let's maybe address that for a little bit, because a lot of your listeners may eventually during their life face something like that, because we're coming into some really difficult times. When I was a teenager...
Well, Fritz, I'm sorry. That was a short segment. You'll have a long segment, uninterrupted, straight ahead. We'll start at that point when we come back. You're 7-8 years behind the Gulag wire, and I see you've lost a lot of weight, but your spirit's still there on the other side. Political prisoner, Fritz Springmeier. Stay with us. Now, going back to political prisoner Fritz Springmeier, you were talking about, hey, I've been on the other side. Was it 7 or 8 years? And you need to know what it's like, because a lot of you are probably going to be going there as well. We have the biggest prison population in the world. They're setting up a martial law internal checkpoint grid with federal goon forces. They're training neighbors to spy on each other. Jumbotron saying, don't trust your neighbor. It's like a dystopic film, sci-fi horror movie. 1984 meets Stephen King's The Running Man, meets Brave New World, meets The Island of Dr. Moreau. So please continue, Fritz Springmeier.
Yes, pulling together several of your questions, it would be appropriate to talk about prison. One of the benefits, one of the good things that my father had taught me was to think for myself. And so as a teenager, I knew that at some point I was going to bump into the system. There was a little plaque I put up on my door. It said, when freedom fails, good men rot in filthy jails. And I told my sister, I said, because I think for myself and I'm willing to do things about what I see, at some point I'm going to end up in prison. I knew that I was just going to bump heads with this established system at some point in my life, and eventually it happened. Wisdom is knowing what to do, skill is knowing how to do it, and virtue is actually doing it. And some of your listeners out there are actually going to have the virtue of getting out there and doing things. And when they do, you know, when freedom fails, the best men rot in filthy jails. That's where a lot of them eventually will end. One of the things that happened during the 90s, the 1990s, which people really can't appreciate, but I gave so much of myself. I opened my house up to victims of Illuminati mind control. I had people coming in from around the world trying to get deprogrammed. I was doing research around the clock. I was writing. I was traveling. I was sleeping very little, and I was donating my life to everybody else. And when I went to prison, I finally got some time to work on myself. And so it was like a vacation. I could work on myself, get my health back, do exercise, all the things that I had neglected while I was trying to help everyone else.
So no weapon formed against you will prosper.
That's right, brother.
All right, continuing here. And by the way, folks, I've looked at the case. 100% set up. I mean, that shows you how criminal this government is. And people ask, well, then why am I still on air? Well, I've been physically attacked. I've been demonized 7 ways to Sunday. National TV, grassroots, you name it, total COINTELPRO. I've been threatened, and I just put it in God's hands. That's A, your prayers, B. But C, I'm so high profile, from their view, they don't want to highlight everything I've said, put 1,000 exclamation points behind it. But I'm not stupid. I know that if God wasn't there protecting me, I would already be dead. But it's kind of like the sports analogy. They tell you, go 110% every play in football, or you've got a much better chance of getting hurt. It's when you don't go 100% or 110%, you get hurt every time. And my view is, look, I'm in, point of no return. It's actually a good feeling. Commit to it. Whatever happens, you know what? I tried to be the best person I could, and that's why I'm still alive and still here. And it's a fight between good and evil. There's a lot of good people in government who are compartmentalized, and some of us have got to put our nails on the chalkboard to wake them up. Because as Mark Twain said in the beginning, a patriot's a scarce man, hated and feared and scorned and brave. But in time when the cause succeeds, the timid join him, because then it costs nothing to be a patriot. We've got to hit that barbed wire. Fritz, I want your perspective on this and the time we have at a few other issues, and we'll have you back soon while you're here. But why do you think I'm still alive and still around? Because I 100% know I'm for real. I 100% know we're bearing good fruits overall. I'm not perfect. I look back sometimes in horror at what I've done. Why do you think I'm still around?
They don't think that we're going to make that big of a difference. I used to ask myself why they made attempts on my life, but you know, when I blame God for having rescued me through those attempts, but then why didn't they continue to persist? I think because they, on the one hand, they're like, okay, let these people do what they want. You know, and I'll be frank here, you know, when people come online and go to your site, they're identifying themselves to the New World Order, that they're opposed to the New World Order, you know. So they've been tagged, they've identified themselves as...
I agree, they're using it as a gauge, and so that's why I say, good, put my name on the list, the top of the list. You know, this is about us coming out in the light and saying, so what if vampires put me on a list? We're putting you guys on list. We've got to get past their intimidation.
Right, exactly. Exactly. They're so prideful, and they view that their power as being almost godlike, absolute, that they really question whether we can do anything, and in their eyes, we do them, you know, by identifying who's against them, we help them out. And they think that they can squash us like bugs whenever they absolutely need to.
I have noticed that's the one big weakness of the Illuminati, is they are insanely arrogant on power trips, almost to the point of being kind of mentally retarded. I mean, they really are pathetic, because I see how the system destroys its own people. I've seen, just from my own dead reckoning, that statistically it's more dangerous to serve them than to fight them. Have you noticed that anomaly?
Oh, your words are 100% correct. That's why these people wanted out of the Illuminati. It's not a fun place. You might think, well, you know, because I bumped into some people that have told me, Fritz, I'm watching this thing from the sidelines, and I want to be on the winning team, and it looks like the Illuminati is going to be the winning team, so that's who I'm going to go with. No. They don't realize the pain and what you give up to be on that side.
Exactly. It's such a scam. Stay there. Let's talk about that. I mean, you don't make a deal with the devil, folks. Even if you think you got a deal, it's not a deal. What about Al-Qaeda, 9/11, the mind control of 9/11, the system now putting Al-Qaeda in charge in Libya, in Egypt, in trying in Syria? I mean, in plain view, saying we're taking your rights because of Al-Qaeda, but Al-Qaeda is trying to attack you, so we're going to put them in charge. What's the whole Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabian situation and the whole New World Order constellation?
Well, we're working on a number of agendas there, but two agendas, and they tie into what you were saying about death. Two of the agendas is we're working towards a world war, and we're also working towards a world religion where they're going to destroy all fundamental religions and replace it with their world religion, which will be a satanic-based religion. And so Christianity and fundamental Islam are being discredited, and you have a lot of fundamentalists that are being exploited by the media to make people reject Christianity and Islam. So we got that agenda going. We've got also the process where they're bringing all these elements together to create another world war. You know, all of these agendas, like you were saying, you summed it all up by just saying it's death. One of the things that means so much to us are our children. And one of their agendas is to take away the right to have children. You'll notice the process. And when I was in counseling in college, my professor said, if you're looking at a situation, don't look at the details, because the details may be contradictory, but look at the process. You'll see that there's a process to create a world war. You'll see there's a process to discredit Christianity. You'll see there's a process here in many, many different ways to discredit the idea of people having children. And at some point, the government will be able to take that over, produce children in factories, and then, of course, we'll have the mind control full blown. Then they can produce whatever they want. You know, if they need a certain model soldier, they'll produce it. If they need a certain model slave labor, they'll produce that slave. They'll be under that type of mind control that's the program, you know, like a computer. Basically what they'll be creating is human robots. And they've been doing that already, so that they've already have the ability to do that. It's just that there's still some of us around that are free men, that think with are still free thinkers.
Well, that's one of their mind control programs, is to tell us we don't have free will, we're not allowed to have our own moral beliefs, but they have theirs. They all know it's about free will. They want to tell you there's no free will, and they admit the military with the drills and the codes and the files, it's all about making you do something over and over again until it just becomes automatic. We've only got a minute left. Anything else you'd like to add? I'm looking forward to our hour-long interview this Friday.
Oh, just encourage people to have hope. That's the big goal and the big assignment that I have now from the Lord, is to get out there and give people hope. If people don't have hope, if they throw their hope away, they're not going to move forward in life. And so hopefully what's happened with me will be encouraging to people, that they will see that in spite of it being dealt a bad set of cards, that you can still do something with it, and you know, that they would be encouraged, and likewise they would get out there and do something positive with their life instead of just cursing the darkness and hiding from it.
Fritz, we're out of time. I'll say bye to you in a moment. Retransmission starts now, but it is the journey. It is the test. Do good on the test. That's the whole point, folks. Face the evil.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide.
Today, but he's agreed what he wants to talk about is who he really is versus the lies of places like Wikipedia, and what happened to him, you know, what he can say about prison, and where he sees the world, 7, 8 years after being incarcerated. But they can do this to anybody. They can plant drugs on yours truly, or put horrible things on my computer, or, God forbid, kill my family and say I did. And so Fritz Springmeier joins us via video Skype. Fritz, for people that don't know who you are, a lot of people that have been into the conspiracy, into reality, they, of course, know who you are. Over the years, I've said, they've said, where's Fritz Springmeier? Where's Fritz Springmeier? Where's Fritz Springmeier? Or, why don't you get...
It's Alex Jones.
I didn't get any bad vibes from him, and I know that that's always the real signal. And I've been selling his book now for many years, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Fritz Springmeier. One of the only places you can actually get it is at Infowars.com. And when I first read this a decade ago or so, I'm going to be frank with you, I'd met Fritz when he was here in Austin on local TV, down at the station, and met him at another conference event once. And I believed he believed a lot of it, but I, even though the publisher, I knew they were selling them, he would have no reason to bomb a porno store or whatever and then rob a bank. And I remember him saying, they're breaking in my house, they're trying to set me up. I remember seeing it in the news, they'd been raiding him and stuff, and then boom, they grabbed him, put him in jail. Now remember, the government has a 98% conviction rate with the feds. And he's on probation. He's been in jail for many years. He's lost a lot of weight. I just saw him on Skype a minute ago. He looks better than he did just a few weeks ago in the one video I've seen of a little presentation he did. He'll be back again, but we got to be careful how much he gets into. Though I snuck into Bohemian Grove and things, and I first met him right after I snuck in there, I still had trouble believing it. Since then, so much. He was the first guy I heard talking about the royal family of England not really being German, but being from Transylvania. And then, really being Arabic and all this stuff, or Sephardic. And then now that's on national news now. So just a lot of really wild stuff. And then over the years, so much of it, no matter how wild, has turned out to be true. Now, imagine Fritz. He had, I don't know how many books out, everywhere he went, selling tons of them. I know we were selling a lot.